This week's parasha, Parashat Hayeh Sarah. I just read this year's ma'amar from the Shrilei Pinchas, by Pinchas Friedman, the Belzer Rosh Kolel. Unbelievable stuff. I had to share the beginning of the Dvar Torah because he has unbelievable stuff in here. Okay, so the parasha starts off with the death of Sarah Imeinu. Vayu Hayeh Sarah, Meya Shana, Beslim Shana, Besheba Shanim Shrei Hayeh Sarah. And Sarah Imeinu dies at 127 years. She's 100, she's 20, she's 7. We know the famous Dvar Torah that she was 100, like a 20, like a 7. She's pure. She keeps mitzvot. She has meaning. She didn't sin. She's like the perfect of the perfect. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh writes, she really reached shleimut in her lifetime. Sarah Imeinu was awesome. Vatamot Sarah Kiryat Arba hi Hebron be'eretz Canaan, and then Sarah Imeinu dies in Kiryat Arba. This is the city of Hebron. The Shvilei Pinchas brings down an unbelievable Zohar. What's this like language that she dies in a place called Kiryat Arba? Really, in general, what is this Kiryat Arba? It's Hebron. We know in the past we spoke about Hebron being that chibur, that place to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the gateway to Gan Eden, a very, very holy spot in Eretz Yisrael, one of our 4 holy cities. Kiryat Arba is Al Shem, the Arba, the great Zugot, the great couples, that are the 4 great couples that are buried in Marat HaMachpelah. But Rashi notices, this whole story is right after the Akeidat Yitzhak. So Rashi explains, "V'nismecha mitat Sarah l'Akeidat Yitzhak, defisha ayedei besorat Akedah shizdamen ben al-shchita." What's the connection between Sarah Imeinu's death and the Akeidat Yitzhak? Because when she heard what happened, ukimat shel nishchat, and she heard that Yitzhak was almost killed, parcha nishmata mimena umeta. Her neshama jumped out, and so basically Sarah Imeinu's death, in a certain aspect, is because of what happened with the Akedah. When she heard what took place with the Akedah, her son had almost died. At that point, she dies. So, first off, what's the deal with that? She's going to die because of the Akedah. Now, we spoke in the past that ultimately, the Akeidat Yitzhak is this great test of Avraham, this great test of Yitzhak, and they passed the test with flying colors, but ultimately there was no Akedah, there was no death. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and we remember the shofar blast, and we say, remember the ashes of Yitzhak, there really were no ashes of Yitzhak on the level of the Pshat, but we see there was a death. There was Sarah Imeinu, which also we said in the past is why the shofar blast also correspond to these tears that Sarah Imeinu is going to cry when she hears about the Akeidat Yitzhak. So there's a massive zechut in Sarah Imeinu, and a massive zechut even in the death of Sarah Imeinu when it comes to the Akedah. But why? Why is she dying right now? And how does that relate to the fact that we just said she lived a complete life and a full life? So is it a complete life, or did she die because of the Akedah? Is she dying early? Is she dying on time? Like, what's going on over here? So says the Shvilei Pinchas, quoted the Tikkunei Hazor, unbelievable. Vatamot Sarah, and Sarah dies beKiryat Arba. We can read the word Kiryat, also looks like the word Keriyat. I know there's an aleph over here that's missing, although I did read that there are some older versions of the word Keriyat without an aleph. Okay, but it sounds like Kiryat is the same kind of sound as Keriyat. Vatamot Sarah beKiryat Arba, da Keriyat Shema. We have a hint over here to Keriyat Shema. Delo mitat Hayeh tzadeket al yedei nachash, because this tzadeket, Sarah Imeinu, didn't die from like the venom of the nachash. Ella nafkat rucha dila beKeriyat Shema be'arba atvan. Rather, she died with the Keriyat Shema, with the 4 letters of, and he explains this over on, that the 4 letters correspond to the 4 letters Dishma Kadisha, to the 4 letters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, the Yud K and the Vav K, the whole name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yud K Vav K. She's dying with these 4 letters. Kiryat Arba are the Arba letters of the Yud K Vav K, God's name. And what is the hint to Yud K Vav K? The Inun Yud. The Yud is the name. It corresponds to the Yud K Vav K to Hashem. The Hey corresponds to Elokeinu. The Vav to Hashem, and the Hey to Echad. Meaning at the end of the Kriyat Shema we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Those last 4 words correspond to the 4 letters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. This concept of the good, the bad, the rachamim, the deen, the easy, it's all achdud. It all comes from the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So right now, when she is dying in Kiryat Arba, she's dying on this concept of the yichud, this coming together, this oneness of the 4 letters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, of Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And then he closes off the Zohar, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. That Baruch Hashem, she dies with the Kriyat Shema. So now, what in the world's going on right now? So now, on the surface, this is actually kind of pretty cool, because what do we know about Kriyat Shema? Kriyat Shema is that whole concept of the last breath. Rabbi Akiva, his last breath is on the Echad of the Kriyat Shema. This Neshama is going up. So we're saying now that Sarah Imeinu is dying, her last breath right now, this Kiryat Arba, she's dying with the Kriyat Shema. It's like this is a Kriyat Shema alamita. This is the Kriyat Shema of the end of her life. Okay. Comes along the Shvilei Pinchas and he goes a step further. He says, okay, but why? And what's this relationship to the Akedah? So does she die because she was old? Does she die because she already completed her life? Or is she dying because of the Akeidat Yitzhak? Like, what's really going on over here? So he says as follows. Avraham and Yitzhak. What do we know about Avraham and Yitzhak? So Avraham and Yitzhak, they're these two, father and son. On the one hand, they're so connected. They're united. But on the other hand, they're the exact opposite midot. Avraham Avinu is the midah of chesed. Yitzchak is the midah of din, of gvura. One is the chesed that keeps going. It's the shefa that keeps coming out. The other one is the boundaries and the bounded. And he says on the surface level, they're the exact opposites on the surface level. And in reality, they're the exact opposites when it comes to midot. He says, what was the Akeidah all about? We spoke about this a little bit last week in our Dvar Torah about the po and the ko, that the Elokeinu and the Yud Kei Vav Kei, that there is a certain type of Lashem Yehud. There's a certain oneness coming down right now of Midat Hadin and Midat HaRachamim. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei together with the name Elokeinu, Hashem Hua Elokim, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. There is a oneness taking place by Avraham being the Chesed and Yitzchak being the Din, walking together Yachdav. When they are joining together, at this point, we're having a yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. We're having a yichud of the midot. But then he explains, based on another Zohar, he says that really the Akeidat Yitzhak was much more of a test for Avraham Avinu. As we know, the Torah tells us, Vashem Nisat Avraham is really a test for Avraham, not as much a test for Yitzhak, because the concept of giving up your life to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's very much a Yitzchak Din type of thing. Of course, I'll die for Hashem if he asks me to. That's of course, everything. I'm totally batel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But he says for the chesed of Avraham, which is all about giving and doing, this concept of killing your son, of this concept of death, that's not connected the exact same way. So he quotes a Zohar that says that Avraham Avinu, who was super, super chesed, he didn't have the proper yichud of midot. He didn't have the proper holding back of his chesed. Meaning Avraham Avinu was way too much chesed. He would just give and give and give until he needs a wife like Sarah. We know Sarah Imeinu corresponds to Din, as we spoke about in previous years. She has to tell Avraham when it's like, okay, no, this Ishmael is a bad influence in our house. We have to get rid of this from our house. We have to have our certain boundaries. She becomes the choma. She becomes the walls of the home that protects Avraham Avinu, because Avraham just wants to do and do and give and give and give, and Sarah Imeinu has to hold him back. So it says that Avraham Avinu didn't reach the level of having din in his midot until the Akeidah. Because the concept of the Akeidah was really the big test against his chesed. And he says in the actual action of the Akeidah, he's willing to slaughter his son for HaKadosh Baruch Hu against all of the midot and understandings that he had of the world. At that point, he was holding back his understanding. For the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have yourself the real din, the real gvura. Avraham Avinu is holding himself back. Now, for the first time, Avraham Avinu is really koneh, the midah of din as well. So Avraham is no longer just chesed, he's really din. And that's the real concept of the that we have this yichud of the father and son. They say that Yitzchak joins with his father. He also gets chesed at this point as well. And now he's ready to get married to have a Yaakov, who's really going to be the joining of the two. But really the test, he says, is for Avraham, because Avraham was all this chesed. Now, I think this could help us answer another question we spoke about in the past. They have the famous question, why does Avraham fight for the city of Sodom, but he doesn't fight for Yitzchak? So we had questioned, ultimately Avraham loses the argument for Sodom, and maybe, he was learning that sometimes there are things you don't fight for. Maybe there are evil people enough, or there's a city of evil people that's just too great. And ultimately, that's maybe what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was teaching Avraham Avinu over there, that there are limits to how far we're going to do chesed, there are limits to how far we're going to save people, and this city really wasn't worthy. But now we can say maybe a little bit better, that Avraham understood right now from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Sodom story, his chesed was never reined in. So when now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, you got to go slaughter your son, Avraham recognizes this is a test for himself, a test for his midot. Am I really doing it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or am I doing it for my chesed? So the Akeidah now becomes the point where Avraham can reach his completion, he can reach his shleimut, because now he's going to join together with Yitzchak's midah and hold himself back, or hold his great chesed back by being willing to offer his son to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And at that moment, ding, 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 Avraham Avinu reaches everything. So explains the Shvilei Pinchas, when Sarah Imeinu hears what took place. Now this is the idea. What's the relation of Sarah Imeinu's death to that of the Akeidah? She hears that her husband, Avraham, who was always this midah of chesed, is now all of a sudden willing to slaughter his son for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whoa. My Avraham Avinu, he went from his kisei rachamim to his kisei din. Wow, he got it. He made the yichud. I want to make the yichud too. Now I want to now praise it and sing it out loud to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That now becomes the Shema Yisrael. Sorry, Imeinu says, my husband reached completion. Now I'm complete too. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. She herself now is mitzaref to that L'Shem Yichud Kudsha B'Chu. She's mitzaref to that oneness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the point that even her neshama jumps out. And now we have the death of Sarah Imeinu. But the Shvilei Pinchas closes and goes, Okay, but why now? Why is she dying now? Is she supposed to die now? So he actually says a little different. It seems to be what he's saying is that Sarah Imeinu had actually maybe reached her level of achdut, of the midot, having the chesed and the gvura. Maybe she reached it a little bit earlier, or at least at this exact moment, she had reached it for sure. And she says, Sarah Imeinu was the Ezer Kenegdo for Avraham Avinu. Abraham was the chesed. Sarah Imeinu was the Ezer Kenegdo, so she's the dean to temper the Avraham Avinu. Yitzhak himself is the dean. He takes after his mother. He's the Pachad Yitzhak. And his wife is going to be Rivka. Rivka is the one who's doing Gemilut Chasadim in our parasha. She's all about the chesed. She's the Avram figure. She's going to bring the chesed into Yitzchak. When Sarah Imeinu, he says Sarah Imeinu was around. Why? To hold back Avraham Avinu. She had really, as the Avraham HaKadosh says, she had reached her completion. She really was shalem in her life. But she needed to be around to help her to help her husband. The Chatam Sofer writes that when a person reaches his shleimut, Hashem could still give him longer life if his kids need him, if his family needs him. So he's saying Sarah Imeinu had reached her shleimut, but Avram still needed her to hold back and to teach him when to have deen. But now when she hears about the Akeidah and she hears that Avraham knows how to use deen properly, so now Sarah Imeinu says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, I'm going to have my achdut with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to have my neshama jump out right now because my husband is okay. He can go on without me right now. He has a shleimut and my life is complete. Shabbat Shalom.